24 hours inside the world's most secure prison, ADX Florence. There are places on Earth designed to break the human spirit. And then there's this place. Beat. Hidden in the high desert Colorado sits a fortress so secure, so engineered for isolation, that inmates themselves call it the Alcatraz of the Rockies. A prison where doors never open at the same time, where every movement is calculated to the inch, where silence is a weapon and time becomes your only enemy. For 24 hours, we're stepping into the most secretive and unforgiving penal institution ever built in the United States. ADX Florence, the place where the federal government sends the worst of the worst and then makes them disappear. Cut to black. Before we begin this journey into darkness, make sure you like, share, and subscribe, because what you're about to see, you won't find in any official tour. Welcome to 24 hours inside the world's most secure prison. Sound, a steel door slammed shut, echoing through endless concrete. The gate that never opens. They say the real power of ADX Florence isn't in its weapons, it's in its design. Every square inch of this facility, every angle, every shadow, every bolt hammered into its concrete skin, was engineered to keep people in and the world out. It begins with Gate 1, the outermost checkpoint, a towering slab of reinforced steel, so heavy it takes hydraulics to move it. But here's the part that chills even seasoned correctional officers. The gate only opens for one vehicle at a time, and once you're inside, it closes behind you, before the next door even thinks about moving. No guards with keys, no manual overrides. Everything is controlled from a sealed command center deep inside the complex. A single mistake here could lock an officer in for hours. Camera angle, slow zoom on the gate mechanism humming. But this is only the beginning. A blueprint of fear. The prison is divided into zones, each one more restrictive than the last. Minimum movement, maximum control, zero escape. Inside the front administration wing, a team of analysts monitor every hallway, every door, every camera feed, every sound, 24 hours a day. But what's terrifying isn't what you see. It's what you don't. ADX Florence was built with blind corners, not for inmates, but for the outside world. No open spaces, no escape routes, no visibility from above. The prison itself is a weapon, a labyrinth created to crush hope. Beat. This is where a 24-hour journey becomes a psychological experiment. The prison wakes up. At 6 a.m., ADX wakes up, though wake up might not be the right word. Most inmates barely sleep. The silence is too loud, the concrete too cold, the isolation too suffocating. A typical inmate at ADX spends 23 hours a day inside a cell the size of a walk-in closet. Everything, from their shower to their meals to their recreation, happens alone. Doors don't open. Slots do. Food slides through stainless steel. Handcuffs are applied through ports built into walls. Communication is restricted to muffled echoes bouncing through vents. And as the sun rises over the Rockies, some inmates haven't seen that sun in years. The silent breakfast. Breakfast at ADX doesn't involve cafeterias. No lines, no noise, no human contact. A single tray, through a single slot, delivered by a guard who may never see the inmate's face. The meals themselves are simple. High-calorie, bland, nutritionally balanced. Designed not for taste, but for control. And here's where psychology begins. Every tray becomes a reminder. You are alone. You will always be alone. And the world is moving without you. For some inmates, the tray isn't food, it's a countdown. The first movement of the day. At exactly 7 a.m., the first inmate of the day is scheduled for movement. This could be a medical check, a legal visit, a shower rotation, or the infamous 1 hour of rec. If you can call standing alone in a concrete cage recreation. To move a single inmate, the prison launches a full-scale mini-operation. 3 officers, head-to-toe Kevlar, shields, cameras, handcuffs, leg irons, a belly chain, a full pat-down. Everything is documented. Everything is double-checked. Everything is rehearsed. Because one mistake, one door opening at the wrong time, is the difference between order and a riot no one survives. The most dangerous corridor in America, this hallway, this simple, unremarkable stretch of concrete, is the most dangerous corridor in the entire federal system. Known as a range, it's used to transport some of the most violent offenders in the country, men who have killed inside other prisons, men who have nothing left to lose, men who fear nothing except the walls of ADX. The air here is heavy. Every footstep echoes like a threat. This is a corridor built not for walking, but for surviving. The prisoners they don't talk about. Not all inmates at ADX Florence are famous. Some are known only by their crimes, some by numbers, and some not at all. Here, anonymity is a weapon. Names fade. Identities are stripped. Every prisoner becomes a statistic, a ghost, a cautionary tale. Inside these cells live men convicted of murder, espionage, terrorism, and organized crime. Some arrive for acts committed decades ago. But ADX doesn't care about your past. It cares about your present threat. One inmate may spend years without physical contact with another human being, communicating only through shouted words, echoing down concrete walls, or the occasional legal document. It's here the mind begins to fracture. Psychologists call it solitary sensory deprivation. Prisoners call it hell. A study commissioned by the federal system revealed that extended confinement in cells like these can cause extreme anxiety, hallucinations, severe depression, memory lapses, complete disorientation of time. But ADX has no interest in comfort. This is not rehabilitation. This is containment. Recreation that feels like torture. Recreation. Most prisons use this word loosely. At ADX, recreation is a 1-hour stint inside a cage the size of a parking space, surrounded by 20-foot walls, topped with razor wire. Some inmates pace endlessly. Some lift weights. Some do nothing at all, just staring up at the sky, counting clouds, counting time. Officers watch from behind reinforced glass. Cameras capture every angle. Every moment is monitored, recorded, and stored. For inmates who spent years here, recreation is more than exercise. It's the only glimpse of freedom they'll see that day. Some prisoners attempt conversation through walls. Some whisper to themselves. Some have already lost the ability to speak aloud. And yet they endure. The medical unit, ADX, isn't just about security. It's about control. Even medical care is part of the operation. The medical wing is small, but fully equipped. Doctors and nurses treat everything from common colds to chronic conditions, but under extreme security. Every patient is shackled during treatment. Every movement monitored. Privacy is a concept that doesn't exist here. Psychological care is even more restricted. Some inmates see a counselor once a month. Some haven't seen one in years. Even care becomes a controlled act of containment. Time begins to slow. At ADX, noon doesn't feel like noon. Time is warped inside these walls. Hours stretch like days. Days stretch like weeks. The prison operates like a clock, but not the kind you wear on your wrist. A clock with no hands, no faces, no breaks, only routines meticulously enforced. Some inmates create their own structure. One counts each step inside a cell. Another writes letters that will never be sent. Another talks to shadows. When your only company is concrete, your only task is survival, and your only crime is being a threat, time becomes your adversary, the high-risk unit. Not all inmates are equal. Some are considered so dangerous, so unpredictable, that they are moved to the high-risk unit. Here, contact is reduced even further. Movement is slower. Surveillance is 24/7, and the corridors echo not just with footsteps, but with the tension of men who know no other life. Every interaction is calculated, every gesture scrutinized, every word logged. Some officers say the H unit isn't just a prison within a prison. It's a psychological battlefield. Communication and a legal loophole. Communication is a lifeline, but even that is controlled. Letters are screened. Phone calls are monitored. Visits happen through glass walls. Even lawyers are watched. Even family is watched. And yet, inmates fight for these small fragments of human connection. A single word from outside can change the day. A single letter can restore hope or bring despair. Dusk and a descent into silence. As the sun sets over Florence, Colorado, the prison changes. Not in movement, not in routine, but in the weight of its silence. For most people, dusk signals the end of the day. For ADX inmates, it signals another 23 hours of isolation. Even in their cells, the walls seem to grow heavier. Every sound echoes. Every drip of water is amplified. Every creak becomes a warning. Some prisoners whisper to themselves. Some carve new marks into the walls. Some stare at the ceiling and wait for the next hour to pass. In a place designed to erase identity, every mark becomes a story. Every scratch, every etching, a desperate attempt to assert, I existed. I survived. I am still here. The night shift begins. The night shift is a silent war of ADX. Officers who patrol the corridors know the darkness doesn't hide fear. It amplifies it. Every cell door, every vent, every shadow is a potential threat. Every footstep might be the difference between order and chaos. Some guards describe night shifts as surreal. Time slows. Lights flicker. Even the hum of electricity becomes oppressive. It's here, in the hours of darkness, that both inmates and guards feel the same thing. The oppressive weight of ADX. Meals that mirror the day. Dinner at ADX is not a meal. It's ritualized containment. Trays slide silently through ports. Nothing touches human hands. Nothing invites conversation. Nothing reminds inmates of life outside. And yet, these trays carry meaning. For some, it's survival. For others, it's a countdown. Another meal, another day closer to something unknown. Even food, the simplest human need, becomes a reminder. This is ADX Florence. This is isolation perfected. The psychological edge. Night deepens the mind's struggle. Extended isolation warps perception. Time becomes elastic. Days blur into nights. And every sound, distant, mechanical, human, takes on meaning. Some inmates hallucinate. Some talk to voices in their own heads. Some count walls instead of days. Psychologists call it sensory deprivation anxiety. Inmates call it survival. Here, endurance is measured not in weeks, but in hours, minutes, seconds. Midnight, the alarm clock of isolation. At midnight, most of the outside world sleeps. Inside ADX, the night is never quiet. Alarms, checks, and mechanical movements remind inmates you are always observed, you are always contained, and the prison never sleeps. Even for the officers, midnight is a test of endurance. Every step, every glance, every sound is monitored. A single mistake can spiral into disaster. At ADX Florence, midnight is a reminder you are not free, and you never will be. The longest hour. Some inmates lie awake. Some pace their cells. Some pray. Time has no meaning here. Every hour stretches endlessly, and every sound, footstep, vent, distant door, feels like the heartbeat of the building itself. Some inmates claim this is the hardest hour, not because of danger, not because of hunger, but because the mind fights itself. Here, loneliness is absolute. Silence is weaponized. And the walls, they listen. The break point. Most people are deep in sleep. At ADX Florence, sleep is a luxury. This is the hour of the mind. When exhaustion, isolation, and fear converge, the human brain begins to fray. Some inmates rock back and forth. Some mumble words that have no meaning. Some stare at the corner of their cell as if it might speak back. Psychologists say that extreme confinement can induce hallucinations so real. Even the most hardened criminal begins to question reality. At this hour, the walls feel alive. The doors feel like jaws. And the silence is deafening. Officers on edge. It's not only inmates who feel the pressure. Officers on the early morning shift know the quiet is dangerous. A single mistake, doors open too long, a miscalculated movement, can trigger panic, resistance, or violence. Every eye is trained on every screen. Every hand hovers near the alarm. Every step is deliberate. This is not a prison for mistakes. This is a prison for perfection. And yet, even in control, the tension is palpable. ADX doesn't just contain. It tests everyone inside it. A day repeats itself. And so the cycle begins again. For inmates, the day has only just begun. For officers, the routine repeats, relentless, unending, exhausting. Each day at ADX Florence mirrors the last. Control, isolation, surveillance, repetition. Yet, in this repetition, stories emerge. Small acts of resilience, quiet defiance, moments that reveal the human spirit still flickers, even in the darkest places. ADX Florence was designed to erase hope, to break men, to turn criminals into numbers. And yet, some survive, some endure, and some find meaning in the unimaginable, the untold stories. There are stories that rarely leave ADX Florence. The quiet moments between meals, the whispered prayers in cells, the small victories no one celebrates. Some inmates write letters they will never send. Some create art from scraps. Some speak only to themselves. And still, they find a way to persist. These are the untold stories of survival. Stories of men facing unimaginable conditions and still existing in the shadows. The science of isolation. Scientists study prisons like ADX to understand the limits of the human mind. Long-term isolation can alter brain chemistry, increase aggression, heighten anxiety, and, in extreme cases, even lead to permanent psychological damage. ADX Florence is not just a prison. It is an experiment in human endurance. And every day, every hour, every minute is a data point. Every mark on the wall, every whispered word, every minute of silence, it all tells a story. The story of survival against impossible odds. The cycle of survival continues. Morning arrives again, yet the prison never changes. For inmates, 8 a.m. is just another reminder that time has no mercy here. Doors open and close. Trays slide through slots. Footsteps echo down concrete corridors that seem infinite. Some prisoners have learned to count the hours in silence, tracking the rhythm of the prison instead of the calendar. Some have adapted rituals, stretching, pacing, reciting prayers or mantras. Every act, no matter how small, is a form of resistance, a reminder they are still alive. ADX was built to erase humanity. But even here, human spirit persists in ways both fragile and defiant. The rare interviews. We spoke to those who know ADX best. Former inmates who survived years in isolation. Correctional officers who have spent decades monitoring the most dangerous men in America. You learn to live inside a wall. Not just the walls of your cell, but the walls in your mind. The hardest part isn't stopping fights or escapes. It's watching men fight themselves. Their own minds. These voices rarely leave ADX Florence. And the stories they tell reveal the true cost of containment, the psychological toll. Psychologists warn that prolonged isolation can have permanent effects. Extreme anxiety, hallucinations, disorientation, loss of identity. At ADX, these risks are calculated. This is not negligence. This is design. But even in extreme conditions, some inmates endure. Some maintain their sense of self. Some find methods to cope. Journaling, counting, exercising, prayer. The human mind is fragile, but it is also astonishingly resilient. The relentless routine. ADX Florence is relentless. Every movement is documented. Every sound recorded. Every interaction scrutinized. The schedule never changes. The day repeats. Time is measured not in minutes or hours, but in compliance, survival, and observation. For some inmates, the monotony is crushing. For others, it becomes their anchor. Structure, even in the harshest conditions, can mean survival. Glimpses of humanity. Even in a place designed to erase individuality, humanity finds a way to survive. Some inmates create art from scraps. Some memorize poems. Some write letters they will never send. These are quiet acts of rebellion, small claims to identity, proof that the mind and the human spirit can endure even the harshest conditions. It is in these small moments that hope persists, even in ADX Florence. Night approaches again. As night falls, ADX returns to its full intensity. Isolation deepens. Alarms, doors, and guard become the only constants. The psychological pressure intensifies as inmates face another night of darkness, silence, and confinement. Every hour stretches like a lifetime. Every noise is amplified. And every day becomes a test of mental endurance. This is the hour that defines ADX Florence, where control meets isolation, and where survival becomes the ultimate act of defiance. Conclusion of 24 hours. 24 hours have passed inside ADX Florence. A day for most people, a lifetime for those inside. We've seen the routines, the meals, the isolation, the psychological strain, the rare glimpses of resilience. This is a place where human spirit and human fear coexist, where control and defiance collide, and where time itself becomes both enemy and witness. ADX Florence is more than a prison. It is a test of endurance, a study of isolation, and a stark reminder what humans can survive, even when stripped of everything. If you found this story gripping, make sure to like, share, and subscribe, because the world inside ADX Florence is a world most will never see. The infamous Inmates. ADX Florence houses some of the most notorious criminals in the country, and some whose names the public will never know. Every inmate here has a story. Some stories are violent. Some are political. Some are incomprehensible. Inmate number 1, the architect, convicted of organizing a nationwide crime syndicate. He spends most of his day pacing his 12 by 7-foot cell, writing coded notes on scraps of paper, and mentally rehearsing escape plans that will never be realized. Inmate number 2, the shadow, a man whose crime made headlines decades ago. He refuses to speak, communicating only through notes and hand gestures. His tattoos mark the timeline of his incarceration. Inmate number 3, the strategist, formerly involved in terrorist activities, now spends hours analyzing guards' patterns, even though any action is impossible to execute. The mind remains sharp, trapped in a cage. These men are not merely prisoners. They are experiments in human endurance, living proof of the effects of extreme isolation, the daily struggle. For these inmates, the day is a series of small battles. Eating is a chore. Movement is monitored. Communication is a challenge. And yet, every act becomes a victory. Standing in the 1-hour recreation cage, completing a journal entry, surviving another day without breaking. Survival here is not just about the body. It's about the mind. It's about mastering boredom, fear, and despair all at once. Rare glimpses of resilience. Even inside this fortress, the human spirit persists. Some inmates carve miniature sculptures from soap. Some memorize poetry and recite it aloud in whispers. Some practice mental exercises, creating complex patterns in their heads to keep their minds sharp. These small gestures are acts of resistance. They are reminders that, even here, the human mind can assert itself against the walls. Officer perspectives. Officers who work at ADX Florence see what the outside world never does. The subtle cues of tension, the first flickers of psychological strain, the rare moments of calm in an otherwise controlled chaos. It's not about the danger outside. It's about the danger inside, the minds of these men. Some are calm on the surface, but you can see the storm inside. The prison is designed to contain violence, but it cannot contain thought. And some thoughts are as dangerous as any weapon. Nightfall and psychological tensions. As darkness returns, the psychological pressure intensifies. Hallucinations become more vivid. Time stretches infinitely. Every sound becomes a signal. Every shadow a threat. Some inmates pace endlessly. Some whisper to themselves. Some lie in silence, contemplating the days, months, and years that have vanished behind these walls. Night is both enemy and teacher here. It shows who can endure, who can adapt, and who cannot. Survival strategies. Inmates develop strategies to survive, counting tiles and cracks, repeating mantras, memorizing books, exercising in place, creating intricate mental games. Even the smallest action becomes a lifeline. It's proof that, Even under extreme isolation, the human mind fights to survive, to maintain identity, structure, and purpose. There are places on Earth designed to break the human spirit. And then there's ADX Florence, hidden in the Rocky Mountains. This is America's most secure Supermax prison, a fortress where the worst criminals in the country are isolated, controlled, and forgotten. For the next 24 hours, we'll take you inside its walls, to the corridors of concrete, steel, and razor wire, into the lives of men who survive in a world most of us could never imagine. Before we dive in, make sure to hit that like button, share this story, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the shocking and gripping journey ahead. Welcome to 24 hours inside the world's most secure prison, ADX Florence.